I lost my way in the Himalayas and discovered terrifying secrets of the dark. I never should have opened that door. Just like that, curiosity pulled me in, and dread flooded my veins. A faint chill crept across my shoulders. I was alone in the Himalayas, surrounded by towering snow-capped giants. Their sharp peaks cut into the sky like jagged teeth, ominous and intimidating. It was supposed to be an adventure, a chance to discover the beauty of nature. Yet, something darker lay beneath that stunning facade that it started innocently enough. Breakfast by the fire, watching the steam twist and curl into the cold, thin air. The lodge creaked like it had a story to tell. I felt at ease, filled with excitement until I ventured outside. The crisp air hit me like a slap. The silence was thick, almost suffocating. No birds sang, no wind howled. Just an eerie quiet. I wandered too far. One moment I stood on a narrow path, the next I was enveloped in a shadowy forest, where the trees twisted like screamers, their branches clawing at the sky. A strange chill washed over me, making my heart race. My breath quickened, visible in the air, swirling like ghosts escaping my lips. I should have turned back then, but I pressed on. That's when I heard it. A low rumble, echoing through the trees. It sliced through the silence, sharp and electric. A whisper, like the sound of forgotten secrets winding through the branches. Fear crept in, prickling the back of my neck. I strained to listen, but the whispers coil like smoke, disappearing just as quickly. I moved deeper, the ground shifting beneath my feet, leaves crunching, breaking the absolute stillness. Suddenly, an object darted past my peripheral vision. I turned, heart racing, but found only shadows. Shadows that seemed to coil and twist, almost with a mind of their own. My mind begged me to rationalize it, to convince myself it was only the light playing tricks. But deep inside, I knew something else was out there, watching me. I clenched my fists, feeling the tension bubble beneath my skin. Breathless, I called out, "Hello? Is someone there?" Silence answered. Then, another rustle. Closer this time. The shadows thickened, clinging to me like a second skin. Cold dread pooled in my stomach as adrenaline surged. My body screamed for me to run, but my feet were frozen, rooted in place. The air shifted, thickening with unspoken words. I turned back, trying to retrace my steps. But the path was gone. It had vanished, swallowed up by the encroaching darkness. Panic surged through my veins. I stumbled, urgency driving me now. I couldn't stay here. And that's when I saw it. A figure, hazy and indistinct, lurking just beyond the tree line. It stood still, shrouded in shadows. My heart dropped, a lump lodged in my throat. It was watching me. I could feel its gaze, heavy and cold, pulling me in. Then darkness enveloped me completely, and the breath left my lungs in a silent scream as something between the trees moved toward me. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The thick darkness swallowed me whole, wrapping around my body like a shroud. I could hardly breathe, my lungs constricted by an unseen force. Every instinct screamed for me to flee, but the roots of dread anchored me, forcing me to confront the figure at the edge of sight. It stepped forward, the movement almost fluid, threading through the trees like a predator in its territory. My heart thudded, echoing in the oppressive silence. As it emerged from the shadows, the moonlight caught its features, if they could be called features at all. The edges of its form were nebulous, like an ink stain spreading on paper, shifting shapes before my eyes. A face, No, a mask, white and smooth, but completely devoid of expression, peering directly at me with void-like eyes that sent a chill down my spine. Help me, I should have said, but the words died in my throat, choked by fear. I wanted to turn and run, but I stood there, transfixed. The whispers returned, a cacophony of lost voices rising around me, intertwining with the wind. They seemed to pull at the edges of my mind, each one sweetly beckoning like an old friend drawing you into a warm embrace, yet the chill in their tones told me they were anything but friendly. My surroundings blurred, the trees becoming monstrous silhouettes, stretching and contracting as if breathing. The whispers grew louder, coiling into an unholy symphony of despair. I couldn't make out the words, but I could feel their lament, a sorrowful echo that mirrored my escalating panic. Then suddenly, the figure moved closer, its body an amalgamation of shadow and despair. It extended a long, thin arm, fingers elongated into claw-like appendages that seemed to grasp at the air, searching for something unseen. A tingling sensation radiated from my chest, as though the presence sought to latch onto the remnants of my courage, siphoning off the warmth of my spirit. I stumbled back, forcing my legs to move, but the ground felt treacherous beneath my feet. With each step, the whispering voices crescendoed into a deafening roar, drowning out my thoughts. I was lost, utterly lost, entrapped in a labyrinth created by my own foolish curiosity. I broke into a frantic run, zigzagging through trees that now loomed like skeletons, their gnarled branches clutching at me as if trying to hold me back. I didn't dare look behind, the figure had yet to pursue me, but I felt its presence looming, a shadow staining the edges of my thoughts. My mind raced, searching for a way out of this nightmare, but then came a flash of movement directly in front of me, and I skidded to a jolting stop. Another figure, pale and flickering, rushed past me. I could barely make out its features, a woman with hollow, sunken cheeks and empty, wide eyes, her mouth opening and closing as if screaming yet producing no sound. Instantly, I recalled the accounts of lost adventurers, the stories of those who vanished here never to return, their fate swallowed by these mountains. Were they here? Were they trapped like me, forever caught in the web of darkness? Please, help us, the spectre begged, voice distorted and echoing from every direction. Then it darted deeper into the forest, beckoning me to follow. I hesitated, a part of me yearning for the connection with another soul trapped in this hell, but another part insisted it was a trap, a deception crafted by the darkness itself. The forest began to shift around me, the ground trembling, twisting into elevated mounds and pits as it forced me in the direction of the figure. I had to escape, had to find a way out, before I became like them, another weary face etched with despair. I took a step forward, adrenaline coursing, but as I did, the shadows thickened, the whispers spiked into a chaotic frenzy. The air crackled with static, a semblance of energy curling around me, and in that moment, I froze as the gouged ground split open, revealing a black void beneath an abyss that yawned wide, threatening to devour all light. I stumbled back, but not fast enough. Something reached out in that pulsating darkness, fingers thin and grasping, and I could feel a cold, devouring breath against my skin. The figures crowded closer, their eyes vacant yet filled with sorrow, a glimpse of what awaited me should I fall into the maw below. In seconds that felt like eons, I was teetering on the edge, heart pounding in my ears, the echoes of the lost thrumming inside my skull. Instinct kicked in, and every particle of my being screamed for me to leap back, to escape the encroaching hands. But with a sickening realization, I glanced down into the abyss and saw my reflection mirrored among the endless shadow, an image of terror that reflected not just fear but the darkness gathering in my soul. Then, the grasping hands shot forward, and just as they clutched my ankle, I let out a single soul-clenching scream. The shadows erupted in response, swallowing my voice whole as I was pulled toward the unknown depths, and then silence. Cold, piercing darkness enveloped me, swallowing every hint of warmth as I plummeted into the void below. Time lost all meaning, the sensation of falling extended infinitely, the air rushing past my ears as a cacophony of whispers surged in a menacing crescendo. My body twisted and turned within a world that warped reality, the shadows morphing into grotesque forms, their mouths opening in silent screams of their own. Suddenly, the rush stopped. I hit the ground hard. My bones rattled, and a jolt of pain reverberated through me, yet I was still alive. The darkness was thick here, suffocating, like a shroud that clung to my skin, refusing to let me breathe. Coughing, I pushed myself onto my knees, gasping for air in this deadened space, struggling against the oppressive weight pressing down on me. It took a moment for my eyes to adjust, but I was surrounded by the ethereal glow of spectral figures emerging from the dark walls. The caverns distorted their forms, faces twisted in agony, mouths moving relentlessly in a desperate symphony of pleas and regrets. Flickering orbs of light danced around them, illuminating the anguish etched on their features, the hopelessness imprisoned in their eyes. They reached out, their gnarled fingers beckoning me closer, as if I were the answer to their unending suffering. "Help us. Save us." Their voices intertwined, a chorus of despair that echoed through the cavern, wrapping around me like an unseen serpent. I crawled backward instinctively, spine pressed against the cold stone, each heartbeat hammering in my throat. Just when I thought I might escape their grasp, a low, resonant growl began to pulse from deeper within the shadows, vibrating through the cavern's walls. "Leave." A deeper, guttural voice rang out, distinct from the cries of despair. It reverberated through my bones, paralyzing my mind with dread. "They cannot be saved. They are mine." Before my mind could comprehend the auditory terror, the heads of the spectral figures turned simultaneously, their hollow eyes fixing on me. The acrid scent of decay surrounded me, yet I was frozen, trapped by curiosity and horror, both equally compelling. My heart raced. I knew I should run, but instead, I remained, ensnared by the siren song of their agonized pleas. As their faces shifted, morphing into familiar visages, I recognized them. People I once knew, lost faces from my life, friends, distant relatives. Their gazes were filled with yearning and pain that echoed my own fears. One emerged from the throng, a childhood friend who had disappeared long ago, now twisted, her features a mask of sorrow. "Help me, please," she whispered, the words clawing at what remained of my resolve. Each syllable oozed with a desperate pleading that wrapped around my heart, dragging me deeper into their collective despair. Without thinking, I reached out instinctively. As I did, the air around me grew colder, a bone-chilling wind whipping through the chamber. In that moment, I felt a presence shift behind me. A great mass, dark and unnatural, loomed, its shape grotesque and huge. My body tensed, a primal instinct screaming at me to flee, yet the figures behind me stood as immovable obstacles, their outstretched hands pulling me closer to their despair. "I can free you," I whispered, almost in disbelief, my voice breaking. It felt as if I were trying to convince myself as much as the shadows. But with that single hope, a piercing shriek exploded through the cavern, echoing with unspeakable fury. The entity encroached, shadow twisting and expanding, eyes like burning coals, glowing with an ancient malevolence. "Do not listen. They are lies," it growled, foaming shadows spilling over as its presence pressed in, overwhelming. The spectral faces began to wail, their anguished cries merging into a sorrowful melody that pierced through me, vibrating with an impossible heartbeat of anguish. Suddenly, they lunged at me, their fingers outstretched, trying to drag me into their realm of perpetual agony. I felt their icy grasp on my wrists, pulling me toward the dark, open maw that threatened to consume us all. Terror coursed through my veins, and in a flash, clarity struck me. His was a trap, a last desperate ploy to strip me of my will and plunge me into their eternal night. With sheer instinct, I twisted, pulling free from their grasp, adrenaline surging through my arms and legs. As I began to run, the ground quaked beneath me, and the shadows shifted violently, contorting into horrid shapes, a cacophony of howls filling the chamber. But as I sprinted into the darkness, a sinister voice pierced through the chaos. "You cannot escape your fate." It bellowed, and the shadows shaped into a tidal wave, engulfing me in an instant. Light disappeared in a flash, and as I was swallowed whole, I felt the breath of something ancient rush past me, a promise that I would know true terror soon, and that the horrors I had fled were mere preludes to the true nightmare that awaited. Then, an intense silence fell, wrapping around me like a dense fog. Trapped in a cocoon of dark certainty, I felt the very essence of dread seep into my skin, tightening its grip around my throat as I wondered if I would ever find my way freer, if I had become one with the darkness forever. And just then, from the heart of that suffocating silence, I heard a voice, familiar yet haunting, resonating in the stillness. You were never meant to escape. Panic surged through me like liquid fire as the weight of the voice pressed down, shoving the air from my lungs. My heart thundered in my chest, the echo of it drowning out all sense of time and reality. I strained against the unseen bindings of darkness, breath shallow and gasping, every nerve alive with an acute realization my body was not alone in this woven veil. Faint whispers spiraled into existence around me, circling, taunting, each syllable dripping with a wicked familiarity. In the end, you too shall join us, the voice intoned, mellifluous and sharp, punctuating the stillness. I couldn't tell if it belonged to one of the spectral horrors I had fled or something more sinister. It enveloped me, wooing the fear from within, guiding my sense of self towards despair. You chose to walk among the wretched. Now you must become one. The shadows shifted, pulsating as an unseen will stirred them. I felt a coldness seep deeper into my bones, and dread coiled around my thoughts. The darkness began to blur into shapes, contours forming from the void. Figures appeared just at the edge of my perception, corporeal yet too twisted, a melange of faces overlapping in a riot of confusion. They hovered like specters in a purgatorial limbo, eyes darkly glowing, reflecting endless torment. Leave them. The voice fractured into a shriek of anger, reshaping the environment into a grotesque display of anguished spirits writhing like marionettes on the strings of an unseen puppeteer. They are already lost, but those horrific visages were no mere shadows, they were manifestations of fear itself. Me fear. Each face was a memory long buried, a regret I had fought to suppress, all collected into one terrifying reality. What should have been a refuge, a sanctuary, twisted into a hellish reflection of my past. As their mournful cries began to resonate in a ghastly harmony, a figment of my own mind emerged, a reflection of me, cloaked in the very blackness that surrounded us. It smiled, a rictus grin straight from the depths of the abyss. Why struggle, dear? It crooned, mocking my attempts to resist. This is what you've yearned for all along, to know the truth behind your actions, behind their sorrow. All around me, shadows lengthened their reach, clawing at my consciousness. Could it be that I had let this evil seep into my soul where regret and despair fed it willingly? No. You can't be real. I screamed, but only the echo of the darkness answered me, folding into itself, refusing to relent. Gathering fragments of my will, I forced myself to move, stumbling through the thickening haze of despair. But the ground was treacherous beneath my feet, pulling me into unseen depths. It clawed and gnawed, a force that knew every flaw, every mistake. Shadows writhed, snapping through the air like tendrils that sought to entrap me again, desperate to drag me back into their fold. And yet, just ahead, there flickered a warm light, a glimmer of hope amidst the consuming darkness, beckoning me forward. I pushed against the oppressive air, focusing solely on that beacon, the only sign of potential escape. The phantoms howled behind me, their cries a cacophony of pain that charged the very essence of my being. Foolish one. The darkness growled, its voice a chilling wind wrapping around me like cold fingers. You don't know what lays within that light. Just as I reached out, touching the warmth against my fingertips, a flash of pain shot through my hand, drawing back with a gasp. The warmth turned cold, transforming into an icy grip that tightened around my wrist. An old knowledge whispered to me another spectral figure had emerged from the light, her expression jubilant yet twisted. Join us. Your past won't let you go, my childhood friend echoed, her eyes flashing with both love and malice, the shift unsettling and strange. You belong here without them. Suddenly, I was yanked backward into the consuming black, my body torn between light and darkness. My own screams echoed, drowned by the growls of the shadows and the whispers of those I had lost. You can't hide from what you are. They cried. This is where you were meant to be. In that instant of awful clarity, a new realization struck me like lightning. Blood began to creep from the shadows, pooling at my feet, throbbing like a heartbeat, drawing me like a moth to flame. I faltered, torn by the realization that the darkness was woven into my very soul. It was more than just a trap. It was a reflection, a cruel, distorted mirror, revealing an unspeakable truth. Me true self, I could neither move toward the light nor relinquish the grip of the dark. Panic surged as both sides pulled at me, the spectral screams rising to a deafening crescendo, drowning all sanity. And just when I thought I could make sense of this chaotic plunge into oblivion, my other self grinned wider, and everything around me shifted. Embrace it, it hissed, or you will be lost forever. Then, from the heart of that sickening ultimatum, the shadows formed into a monstrous figure larger than life, breathing the breath of nightmares, its mouth a cavernous abyss of trap. It reared back, preparing to strike as the light flickered and died, enveloped by a surge of darkness that promised eternal despair. But just at that moment of impending doom, a new sound pierced through the unmistakable clang of a bell, echoing through the dark chamber. I froze, heart racing faster than a hunted animal. Was it hope? Or a harbinger of more unspeakable terrors? Before I could step away from the void, the ground trembled, and I was thrust forward, thrust into a new reality that felt both familiar and disquieting. Then, that deep, resonant growl rumbled once more, closer than ever, and a single phrase cut through the terror, freezing me in place: your fate is sealed, and now it's time to deliver the final reckoning. I stumbled into an unfamiliar landscape, yet one that felt eerily reminiscent, as if I had walked this path before in a dream laced with dread. The air was thick with the scent of decay, mingling with the sharp bite of cold, knifing through my clothing like an ascending specter. Twisted, gnarled trees that looked like the fingers of the damned clawed at the slate-gray sky, their branches intertwined, forming a sheltering canopy that flickered with those familiar shadows. It was not simply dark here, it was alive, pulsating with a rhythm that matched the throbbing in my chest. The earth felt wrong beneath my feet, squishy and wet, betraying the illusion of solid ground. I had lost my way, and the isolation pressed down on me like an unbearable weight. A creeping sensation wormed its way through my mind, wrapping around my thoughts and leaving an icy chill clambering along my bones. Whispers danced on the edges of my consciousness, intimate yet haunting, like secret promises whispered from cracked lips. Remember, they chanted, voices overlapping and intertwining in a symphony of menace, echoes of lost souls entwined in an eternal waltz. Remember what you did. Remember the price. As I moved deeper into the forest, the shadows thickened around me, pressing in as I fought against the weight of terror creeping steadily into my heart. It was as if the trees themselves conspired to trap me here, their trunks twisted and contorted into expressions of anguish. Each step became a struggle, as though the earth itself sought to fight back against my trespass. In my frantic search for a way out, I stumbled upon a clearing, bathed in an unsettlingly pale light that pierced through the murky canopy. But that illumination held no warmth, rather, it sickened me as I beheld the sacrilegious display before me. At the center stood an altar carved from stone aged by time and despair, slick with dark, coagulated blood that glistened like obsidian under the ghostly glow. Frozen, I recognized what lay before me: bone fragments littering the ground, grotesque offerings laid out for some nameless entity. The air throbbed with a palpable energy, and in the midst of the remnants, a figure crouched like a predator awaiting its prey. At first, I believed it was merely a person. A flimsy hope ignited within me as I caught a glimpse of the flowing hair, the familiar set of shoulders that danced in the half-light. Lara? I called out, my voice barely above a whisper, drowning beneath the weight of the oppressive atmosphere. She turned, a soft smile unfurling on her face that fast transformed into something monstrous. Her eyes were voids, darkness consumed where light once lived, and her lips curled back from sharp, stained teeth that promised nothing but vengeance. "You're finally here," she whispered, her voice low and dripping with glee. "I've been waiting for so long." I staggered backward, gripped by an inescapable horror as her figure shimmered and warped before my eyes, revealing the truth cloaked in shadow. This was not the girl who had been my anchor. This was a manifestation, a twisted reflection crafted by the darkness I bore within. She was the culmination of all I'd lost, the deadly price I had paid for ignorance and denial. "Do you remember, Daniel?" Her voice reverberated, laced with malice. "The truth of what you did. We could have been free, but you chose betrayal. And now it's your turn to become part of this place." Suddenly the forest exhaled, releasing a swarm of specters that erupted from the trees, their eyes glinting like molten silver, mouths contorted in eternal screams. I turned to run, my breath rattling against my ribs, but the ground churned, swallowing my desperate escape. The air thickened, every sound smothered as if the very essence of dread had wrapped around my throat. The words I tried to scream turned to ashes on my tongue, a useless plea swallowed by the dark, Larano, the creature she had become stepped forward, shadows entwining around her like a shroud. You think you can escape the truth? This is your reckoning. You can't run from what you are, you don't even remember. As she lunged toward me, a blurring movement in the dark, I scrambled to the altar, its slick surface cool against my skin. My hands swept through the remnants, seeking something what, I didn't know. An answer. An escape. But all I found was the cloying weight of temptation, the seductive call of promises long broken. Join us. The voices erupted in unison, a cacophony of torment and despair, mingling with laughter that chilled my blood. You're one of us, and then in the chaos, one last choice emerged among the swirling shadows. I could feel it gathering like static in the air, the altar pulsed with energy, and a celestial light flickered beneath the murky offerings, revealing an ancient sigil carved into the stone, a symbol of binding and release. In that moment, the shadows lunged, claws grasping to tear me apart. I grasped the stone's cool surface, feeling a rush of dread and desire, my heart racing as I confronted my own reflection in this nightmare. What would I sacrifice to reignite the light? Just as the darkness closed in, a voice familiar and soothing whispered in my ear, "Choose wisely," and the world erupted around me, as the shadows screamed in rage, and I realized with gut-wrenching horror that I was not the only one with a choice to make. The forest trembled in a frenzy as I clutched the altar, my fingers tracing the sigil's edges that felt alive beneath my touch, pulsating like a heartbeat. Shadows writhed around me, eager to consume, gnashing their distorted teeth, whispering promises of freedom wrapped in chains of despair. The faces of the lost drifted through the dark like ephemeral wraiths, some begging for release, their mouths open in silent screams. I could almost believe I recognized a few far-flung friends, loved ones, each a testament to a life snuffed out by the insatiable hunger of this wretched realm. My heart pounded so loudly the sound drowned out their mournful calls, a steady rhythm thrumming in tension with the pulsing sigil. "I can help you." Lara's voice sliced through the fog, seductive and vicious. "Just embrace the darkness. You know it's what you desire." Desire? I spat, the world spinning. My mind surged with memories I now feared to confront, echoes of mistrust and betrayal, shadows of the choices that had conjured this nightmare. Was it desire that led me here, or a desperate yearning for forgiveness? I had thought myself lost in a haze of confusion and dread, but now, threads of clarity wove their way through the chaos. I had seen how darkness twisted even the purest of hearts, and though I had hurt Lara, I was not beyond redemption, but the air sizzled, charged with malevolence, as the shadows grew bold, writhing like snakes ready to strike. What makes you think you've earned forgiveness? You think they'll just let you go back? The swirling mass broke apart, revealing fleeting glimpses of the horrors I had inflicted not merely on myself, but on those who had stood by me through my moments of weakness. Ghostly images that seared through the haze showed their faces contorted in pain as they vanished into the void. Those I had lost were now intertwined in the shadows of this cursed land. I saw Lara again, only this time she was an innocent reflection of what she used to be, and in the depths of her pitched eyes, I recognized a seed of anguish. "Daniel," she pleaded softly, her voice steady amid the chaos. "You don't have to succumb." Suddenly, the pressure of the darkness shifted, favoring her light for the briefest moment. I felt the weight of longing deeper now, a yearning not for freedom from this place, but for truth, hard as it was to acknowledge. Clenching my jaw, I felt the truth take hold in my veins, an undeniable pressure screaming at me to act. But as I gathered my thoughts, the shadows surged, their fury coiling tighter around my body. The specters now howled in unison, their lament morphing into a swirling tempest aimed directly at me. I was their intended prey, a target to tear apart. They demanded the weight of my regret and pain. "Give in." A voice roared, booming from everywhere and nowhere. You cannot escape what you are. As I braced against the pull of the darkness, an intense realization pierced my thoughts. I had come to claim redemption, and here, in this pit of despair, I had the power to rewrite my fate. Each heartbeat reverberated through the relic beneath my hands, urging me to make a choice, birth light from darkness. But before I could draw a breath and focus on the sigil's potential, an eruption of sorrow unfurled within me, and I saw them all, faces loved and lost, emerging through the cacophony. Their eyes locked onto mine, pleading for resolution, souls tangled in my choices. Daniel, no. Lara's voice ripped through the suffocating shadows, now filled with panic. Don't choose pain. They will only bring you agony. The ground rattled ominously beneath me, a crackling current of energy rippling across the altar as if time itself were coming undone. I had yet to draw a breath to make my choice, yet here it was, light or dark awaited me, consequences lingering just behind the veil. Then, in the heartbeat of a moment, I let the walls of my heart cascade inward, releasing every ounce of shame, doubt, and fear that had festered for so long. I embraced the truth, the indisputable path etched in the shadows of my past, and as the shadows lunged toward me, the sigil sparked a brilliant light that blasted through the darkness like a sun piercing the dawn, but in that instant, the shadows howled in desperation, coalescing into a singular, frightening form, a massive, sinewy figure pale as bone, encased in the deepest black, eyes like stars long extinguished. You dare defy your fate? It loomed before the altar, its mouth stretching wide, revealing rows of pointed teeth. Then you shall witness their torment once more, and just like that, the faces of my lost friends twisted into snarling masks of rage and despair, their forms so close that I could almost taste the salt of their wasted life on the back of my tongue. You are ours. They cried, voices merging into an anthem of anguish, rising as the creature writhed, all my sins unleashed, culminating in an unspeakable judgment. Then, I felt the sigil pulse violently against my palm as the darkness threatened to overpower the light. Unbearable uncertainty crashed around me like waves, blurring the distinctions between past, present, and future. No. You cannot. I screamed as I knew it was too late, the creature's furious visage closing in as shadows surged forth, filling my vision. And just before everything turned to darkness, I heard a familiar whisper, remember what you did. Remember the price. With a horrifying jolt, my body was wrenched from the altar and thrown into the fray, tumbling into the black as screams echoed in every direction, and the realization washed over me had not just awakened a specter but a reckoning. The shadows gripped tighter, and I screamed, lost forever in their clutches as reality unraveled and swallowed me whole. The crushing weight of darkness enveloped me, and it felt like falling through an endless abyss. My screams were swallowed by the void, replaced by an orchestra of torment, a chorus of cries that reverberated within the depths of my mind, clawing insistently at my sanity. As I plummeted, I could discern faint flickers of light, images of those I had lost illuminating the blackness for but a breath, offering fleeting glimpses of familiarity before being snuffed out again. Then, without warning, I landed, crashing against the cold, damp earth. Pain radiated through my body, but before I could gather my wits, the shadows swirled around me like a tempest, whispering familiar names. Their tones were dripping with betrayal, each name a reminder of the life I had torn asunder. Determined not to succumb to despair, I forced myself to rise, shaking the dust and trepidation from my limbs. A dull glow ahead of me unfurled like smoke coiling from a smoldering ember. Drawn toward it against my will, I stumbled forward, each step heavy with dread. The air here was suffocating, laden with the metallic tang of despair, an eternity of sorrow trapped within the very fabric of this haunted place. As I approached the light, a figure emerged, draped in a cloak spun from shadows. I squinted against the brightness, and with every hesitant step, a memory flickered to life, a memory of laughter. I could see a younger version of myself, happier, unburdened by the shadows. There was a time when hope had graced my heart, an undisturbed time, before the darkness had enveloped me entirely. Daniel, the figure whispered, and my breath hitched in recognition. It was Lara, or at least a shard of her essence carved from the scattered fragments of the past. Her eyes glimmered with the light of lost worlds, yet they twisted with sorrow. You cannot escape, and you cannot choose both. You must confront it, face your truth." The light flickered, wavered, and began to dim in response to my fear. Face what? The agony I've caused? My voice trembled, reverberating off unseen walls. You can't ask me to relive it, Lara. It's too much, too much. She countered, her voice rising in intensity. You think you've borne the weight of your choices? They lie in shadow, waiting. You must know, you must feel the horror of what you took from them. Only then can you truly understand your place in this cursed cycle. With that proclamation, I was forced back, not into those distant memories of laughter, but into anguish. I was thrown into glimpses of the singular moments when I made choices that led to their sorrow, the quarrels that drove wedges between us, the betrayals that carved scars across our connections, the moments I chose selfishness over camaraderie. Images lurked within the shadows of that tortured Rialma confrontation with Peter, a harsh argument with Jane, the last time Maria had reached out for my help. Each spectral visage, each face draped in pain, twisted and contorted before me, morphing into grotesque caricatures of their former selves. Their eyes bore the unbearable weight of my decisions, Daniel. They cried, a cacophony of hurt forging a singular voice that surged through me, demanding recognition. What have you done? In my gut, I felt the rawness of regret coiling, wrapping tighter as I was pressed against the wall of my past. But beneath that weight, a surge of something I'd buried long ago began to ignite the unmistakable fire of anger. Why should I alone bear the weight of these shadows? They had their part in the tale, too, decisions turned wrong by the hands of fate. Why should I suffer for your decisions? I shouted, feeling the echo of my fury roll through the dark. But with that voice, the shadows stirred, and I immediately regretted my words. I knew the answer. The darkness solidified, morphing into the creature that had threatened to consume me before, a grotesque mimicry of the past, adorned with the faces of those I had tormented, their features etched in wrath. Because you seek absolution, yet hide from the consequences of your actions. It roared, louder than I had imagined possible. Before I could answer, the twisted mass lunged, and I was forced to confront this tormentor, a reflection of my inner hell. You think they want you to break? They want revenge. The tendrils of darkness wrapped around my throat as I gasped for breath, smothering my voice before I could scream. No. I struggled, thrust against the weight of my own making. I want forgiveness. I want peace. My pleas echoed among the shadows, rebounding back from the void, laughter suffused with malice filling the air, and just then, a sudden, blinding flash erupted around me, morphing the landscape into a tangle of colors and light, an explosion of all my memories rushing past me, both joy and pain intertwined. As I sought to shield my eyes, I became aware of something lurking within the brightness. A thin silhouette moved, tracing my movements, gauging my despair. I turned my gaze toward it, and my heart dropped as recognition washed over me. Hadn't I seen it before? The figure was my own, yet somehow marred and contorted, a twisted reflection of everything I had lost to the darkness. You think you can escape? It purred, voice like thunder, full of wicked mockery. You will never leave this wretched place. The air crackled with dread, a warning that reverberated through the fabric of my soul. As my own visage reached out with a grasp, shadows surged around me, and the realization settled in me. Greatest fear wasn't what lay outside the darkness, but what lay within. And then, in an instant, I was yanked backward, and everything was swallowed in an unbearable silence. No laughter. No torment. Just an insatiable void, unraveling deeper. My heart raced as icy fingers crept up my spine, and then I heard Ida whisper threaded through the stillness. You can't run from yourself, Daniel. You will always come back. Suddenly, a deafening roar erupted, drowning out everything, pulsing through the black that had become my prison, and laughing, but I was no longer alone. A pair of glowing eyes emerged from the depths, staring straight through my very essence. Tell me where you are, Daniel. It beckoned, voice smooth as silk, chilling as the night. In that moment, as icy tendrils wrapped around my heart, I knew I was not simply grappling with the darkness outside but battling something far worse, the darkness within. And just as the grip tightened, the void split open, leaving me teetering on the edge. What lay beyond it was more terrifying than I could possibly fathom. The rift yawned before me, an abyss that threatened to swallow the fragments of my very being. My pulse raced as I peered into the unfathomable depths, a gravelly laughter rising within the void. It was as though the darkness had a personality, a sentience that sought to consume me whole. The glowing eyes pierced through the inky blackness, their intensity drawing me in against my will. I was transfixed, entranced as that smooth, silky voice slithered into my mind, tightening its grip around the last vestiges of reason. "Where are you, Daniel? Come closer, I wish to see all of you what you've become." That I felt the jagged edge of fear turning inside me like a knife. In faltering steps, my feet inched toward the edge where the light twisted and danced, darting like a predator. Whispers wafted in with the cold wind, darting past my ears like arrows, echoes of the past, ghostly reminders that sent shivers cascading down my spine. "Face us, Daniel. You've run long enough." The voices grew louder, merging into a unified front. Peter, Jane, Maria. It was a chorus of spirits bound by betrayal. Each name sliced through the suffocating quietude, a lament woven with longing and pain. "Tell us where you are." "No," I screamed, forcing myself to retreat. "I don't want to go back. I don't want to see any of it." My defiance reverberated in the shadow-strewn expanse. But the eyes remained locked on me, the allure of their call seeping into my bones, pulling me into that dreadful rift. "Perhaps you don't understand yet," it rasped, the tone dipping into something vile and serpentine. "You are already lost, Daniel. You aren't merely a traveler caught in the dark, you are the darkness. It is your true form." That I staggered backward, clutching my head as memories flooded in, rising like bile from my stomach. I could see their faces, those I had abandoned, intertwined with the brightness that momentarily masked their lurking wrath. Suddenly, the shadows swirled upwards and coalesced into a specter of my past self, unrecognizable and hideous, wielding all the anguish I had dealt to the world. "Look at what you've become," it shrieked, its voice mingling with the chorus of those I once cherished. "Look what you've done." I shut my eyes tightly, trying to drown it out, retreat deeper into the recesses of my mind, but the darkness surged, rolling up my legs and grasping desperately at my torso, its caress transforming into a frigid grip. I fought against the weight that tried to pin me down, astonished at the realization that I was battling not only the horrors that surrounded me but the guilt that rooted deep within. "Do you know their names, Daniel?" the creature taunted, its grin sharp like shards of glass. "Do you remember their last breaths? The final moments they were alive before you threw them to the wolves?" The memories pierced through, vivid as if relived for the first time, the trembling fingers reaching for help, the tears cascading down faces once vibrant now dulled by tragedy. Each recollection unfurled before me like a black banner, suffocating and omnipotent, making it impossible to breathe. "Enough!" I roared, my voice bellowing far beyond my apprehension. "Enough of this torment! I seek only to escape." But the darkness only thickened, closing in around me, responding to my anger with a force that ripped through me. The ghosts wailed as the darkness showed me their faces, pale, twisted, contorted in despair. "Escape? There is no escape from this plight, Daniel. You will wear this burden until the end of time." Just as despair threatened to swallow me whole, a sudden flash of light erupted from the depths of the rift, a glimmer that pierced through the veil of shadow. "Do you see this?" it called, the voice awaiting my answer, pleading for me to step forward. That I felt that strange tug at my heart, and despite the cacophony of anguish enveloping me, a fierce longing pushed me toward the intense brightness. Glancing back just once at the faces, I saw that they were no longer anguished, their expressions had morphed into something else entirely, something darker. They grinned grotesquely, revealing jagged teeth that glinted under the dim glow. "Foolish boy," my reflection said, a low chuckle resembling thunder echoing through the chasms of my mind. "Even now you cannot grasp the depth of your sins." I turned away as fear gripped me fiercely, propelling me forward with newfound desperation. In this moment of peril, a single thought ricocheted in my mind. It was not merely the darkness I faced, it was a reflection of the choices made and lived with. Just as I inched closer to the light, the piercing voices erupted into a frenzy, overwhelming me with a discordant harmony that threatened to drown out my will. "You'll never leave," they cried. "You are ours." Suddenly, without warning, the ground beneath me trembled, shadows writhed and coiled, seeking to pull me back into the abyss. I stumbled, my body teetering on the brink. With the force of a tempest, I thrust myself toward the light, feeling an overwhelming surge of strength roll through my veins. With one last push, I leaped into the radiance, teeth gritted, heart hammering against my ribcage. The brilliance enveloped me, tearing at the darkness like claws scraping against glass. And in that critical instant, a grueling scream erupted from the void, a sound that shattered my very essence, echoing as I fell into the brilliance. But before I could find refuge, a hand shot out from the darkness, clasping my ankle, pulling me back with a force that hurled me toward the shadows. "You cannot escape, Daniel," it roared, the voice morphing into a cacophony of everything I once loved and lost, and just then, the light blinked. The ground quaked beneath me as the void swallowed my scream, and I fell deeper into a realm not only of darkness but of the unending cycle of torment. As I plummeted into the yawning chasm, a cold dread enveloped me, wrapping around my limbs like slimy tendrils. The air grew thick and stale, suffocating, draining away the last remnants of my will to resist. I could feel the shadows whispering my name, curling around my skin, whispering comforting lies that I desperately wanted to believe. "This is the way home," they cooed, and I found myself slipping into a trance, surrendering to the terrible gravity of despair. But just as I thought I'd embraced the darkness completely, an overwhelming pain pierced through me, a flicker of defiance igniting at my core. Flashes of my life surged back in a kaleidoscope of agony and regret. I remembered the promises made, the smiles I had forsaken, the love I had cast aside to roam the treacherous paths of ambition and greed. As the dark throne of despair threatened to reclaim me, I fought against it with the last shreds of my determination, but those very emotions that fueled my resolve twisted into black thorns. Memories of Peter, Jane, and Maria, each one like a dagger in my heart, became shackles that gripped my spirit tightly. They were my anchors to this realm, and they pulled me deeper into the folds of shadows until the cries of anguish morphed into a thunderous roar. "Daniel!" A familiar voice called out, reverberating through the murky gloom, a sound both haunting and sweet. "You remember us, don't you? You're only friends." Images flared around me as I struggled against the darkness, Mariah's laughter echoing like a distant chime, Peter's arms extended toward me, a warm fire crackling behind him, and Jane's serene face, offering hope amidst chaos. But the more I fought to escape, the more twisted and sinister their forms grew, faces merging with shadows, their eyes reflecting the pain I etched in them. "You let me drown," Peter spat, his voice laced with betrayal, twisting my heart like a vice. "You chose ambition over us. You chose darkness." "No!" I screamed, stilling my flailing arms. "I can't, this isn't real." But the abyss answered with a silent cacophony, engulfing me in memories which morphed into grotesque reimaginings, echoes of tragedy reframed, redefined by anger and grief. I could sense the chill of dread wrapping tighter around my throat, choking me, constricting any drive for escape. And then, from the chaos of voices, a new sound, Arisian eerie laughter, hollow and echoing, winding its way around my mind like smoke. "You did think you could run from us, didn't you? Arrogant and naive." At that moment, I saw its swirling essence of the void, chaotic and pulsating, coalescing into grotesque figures. It was an army of the broken, molded from every loss I had ever suffered. They stood united in their sorrow, embodying the weight of my sins, limbs twisted and faces obscured in dark shrouds, their whispers and motives intertwined with my own self-loathing. "Stop!" I begged, tears streaking down my face as I caught glimpses of their pasts. Each specter told a tale of how I had failed them. "Please, didn't you see? I'm trying to change. To want to help." The laughter devolved into shrieks that echoed in the depths of the rift, a roaring tide that swallowed my words whole. "Help? You are merely a vessel of torment, Daniel. Embrace what you truly are." The laughter and cries crescendoed, drowning my thoughts, blurring the boundaries of reality. I struggled to breathe, darkness smothered me, its ancient malice clawing toward the flicker of my light, seeking to extinguish it completely. But then, amid the tumult, the light reappeared once more, this time flickering with an iridescent pull that was impossible to resist. Daniel. It beckoned, like a lifebuoy in a stormy sea. This is your chance. Come to me. With desperation spiraling through me like a whirlwind, I thrust myself toward that beckoning light, fighting against the sinuous shadows that attempted to drag me down once more. Clawing at the ground, I nearly reached it when a massive force erupted from the void, a surge that bore down on me, pinning me against the rocky floor of the abyss beneath. In that crushing moment, I felt bones shattering, hearts breaking, mine and theirs alike intertwining into one single pulse. The relentless grip of a shadowed figure emerged from the depths, its face obscured, but a painful familiarity coursed through the air, curling my fingers with icy dread. Just as I recognized it, the enormity of the realization stilled my heart. The entity holding me was none other than the specter of my former self, a dark mirror reflecting a fate I had unwittingly invited. Welcome back, Daniel, it hissed, a winding smile stretching across its face adorned with faint echoes of the lives I shattered. You've missed us. And then, as I gasped for breath, the world around me shifted abruptly. The ground began to crack, fissures spreading like gaping mouths, and as I looked down, the abyss was cracking wide open, revealing whispers of what lay beneath, a future far darker than any past I'd regretted. Time for reckoning, my reflection called, and with a chilling finality, I felt the ground give way beneath me, plummeting once again into an unfathomable darkness. The very air shattered as screams of the lost reverberated endlessly, echoing like a siren's call, breaking against my soul. And from the depths, a new voice rose, a dark whisper that slithered through the cracks, or perhaps, it's merely the beginning. The cold clutches of darkness enveloped me as I fell, an endless spiral into depths I had hoped never to find. It felt like I was distorting into the very essence of despair itself, the pull of insignificance drawing me further down, stripping away the remnants of hope. Then, everything stopped. The silence that followed was deafening, so profound that even my heart seemed to pause in response. I opened my eyes, trembling, and found myself alone, suspended in a void where time and space no longer existed. The thought of isolation began to settle in my chest, but I was unprepared for what would follow. Before me loomed a vast expanse, its surface reflecting ethereal lights flickering like distant stars. It felt like a limbo of memory, where all my regrets coalesced into a singular, grotesque form. And then came those voices, the loved ones I had burdened, the ones whose lives I had forsaken. They echoed through this bleak expanse, rhythmic whispers calling my name with sorrowful intent, taunting yet subdued. Daniel, what have you done? They chimed that I fell to my knees, pressing my palms against the cool surface beneath me, horror flooding through every fiber of my being. I remembered everything, the fractured relationships, the gaping cracks in the foundation of my life built upon selfish decisions and negligence. All of it surrounded me, swirling in iridescent patterns that sparkled yet burned. Please, let me go, I begged, feeling the air thickening around me, suffocating and dense. I just want to make it right, but the voices turned harsh, their tones transforming from sorrow to something more menacing. There is nothing right left to make. I shut my eyes tightly, fighting against the truth mixing with despair. Suddenly, a piercing light split the darkness, and a spectre emerged, a figure adorned in shadows and pain yet somehow familiar. There stood Lara, but her once warm features had twisted into an expression I could barely recognize. You chose to leave us all behind, she whispered, her voice a haunting blend of accusation and grief. You brought this upon me. You brought it upon yourself. Lara, I stammered, but my words faltered as the figures behind her swirled, their faces contorted in agony yet mingled with something sinister. They surrounded me, their eyes dark pits, drawing closer, insisting on my attention, voicing all the judgment I feared. Can you cry for the ones who were lost because of you? The empty seats at the table? They wailed, and amidst their chorus, I saw snapshots flickering in the black, moments of joy turned tragic that I felt the weight of my decisions, whispering promises of redemption that had led only to devastation. Then, from within that noise, a voice rang loud and clear. "You fought against the darkness, Daniel, yet you still embody it," it said, cutting through the cacophony. I turned to the source, the twisted manifestation of my former self, an amalgamation of mistakes and shadow. "What are you?" I gasped in horror, feeling fractals of my heart break anew. "I am you, the reflection you wished to escape. You've kept me at bay, Daniel, but shadows cannot be fled, only confronted." And then, a terrifying realization struck me. His wasn't just a confrontation with my past. This was a reckoning with my own soul, a dark ritual of sacrifices laid bare that were rooted within my consciousness. My laughter turned to screams, and as I faced the twisted visage of my former self, I realized that to free myself, I would have to embrace the very darkness I despised. With that awakening, the shadows swelled, the air vibrating with rancor. "You cannot change what you are." It held me voice, my suffering. But deep within me, an ember ignited. "Yes, I can." I screamed, forcing the words through clenched teeth. "I can confront my sins, face them head-on." And as I cast my gaze around the spiraling void, the once faceless phantoms began to conjure back their humanity, their earlier bitterness tinged with a semblance of hope. Their forms solidified, basking in an aura of luminous sorrow. As their faces joined with me once more, a strange clarity burst before me. "You must remember what binds us together," they cried. "Your past does not define your future. Your light is buried, yet it burns." With those words searing into my mind, I turned my gaze back to the darkness lingering at my side, the pool of despair threatening to swallow me whole. I refuse to be defined only by the hurt that's come before. I seek to rise. The swirling waters of darkness roared around me, reckless and vengeful, threatening to pull me under. But I felt that ember grow into a flaming, vibrant light that ignited my determination. I could feel the warmth of their spirits weaving around me, mutilating the smothering shadows, pulling me into deeper waters filled with endless regret. In that moment of desperation, the gate of my soul cracked open. "I am more than darkness," I roared, thrusting my arms forward, hurling my truth into the void. For every whispered name, for every life I had broken, there was a chance to let go and rise. As I pushed against the swirling tide, an explosion erupted, a burst of light connected to those voices, binding our essences together, illuminating the dark chasms. Yet, just as I began to feel free, a voice pierced through the noise, slicing through every shred of light. "You think you are free?" The bleeding echo of my reflection rang out, drawing me back like a net, and just like that, within that moment of unity and hope, shadows lurked threateningly behind, whispering doubts like venomous snakes. They rushed to peel back the layers of light I had begun to weave, but as I cried out against the approach, something beyond me surged, a final piece I had to embrace. I choose my light," I shouted, a thunderous declaration rising inside of me, and with one final sweep, I allowed my darkness to intertwine with my brightness, colliding into a pitch of harmony where acceptance lay. As the essence of both worlds fused, the shadows clutched at me desperately, yet I felt free, the chains of consequence melting away under the illuminating heat of my choice, and then I understood it wasn't the end, nor was it a beginning. It was a moment, a cycle recommenced, where each piece shook loose, letting the essence of my former selves merge into the grand tapestry of the universe. I was not just darkness nor light, I was both an ended and a beginning, a haunting truth that forever rippled through existence. Yet, as I stood witnessing the change, a chilling wind swept through the remnants of the specters, whispering a dreadful reminder, an echo etched upon my being. "The shadows will always linger, Daniel, for they are as much a part of you as the light. Never forget, you are never alone."